Hello, and welcome back to Practically Political. I am joined as always by Ashley Davis and Kurt Bardella. It's great to have you folks here. Today is November 19th, uh, 2025. I can't believe it. More than 2 weeks past the election. And of course, the big question that is just bouncing around political circles, is this the start of Donald Trump being a lame duck? And you look at things and you have to say, okay, he opposed the Epstein files, but it started with the trickle with Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then it was going to be the dam was about to break. So it's always better if you can't stop the parade, go to the front of it. So he is now saying that he welcomes it, that he'll sign the bill, though I'm a little cynical, so I just want to count my chickens when that happens. But in any case, it's a huge change. His approval ratings are the lowest that they've been since January 6th. And you're starting to see, maybe it's just a hairline fracture, but you're starting to see the first cracks in the MAGA alliance. And just he's ruled the Republican Party for so long, and there's been no dissent. And I have to say, is this the end? Most presidents, they say you have 6 to 9 months in your second term before you start to become a lame duck. It's been going on a year now. I guess technically 10 months that he's been in office, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because we've said this is the end of Donald Trump before. We've said, oh, he's not going to survive this. This is going to be it. But yet he always has. But this time, to me, for a few reasons, does seem a little different. What do you think, Ashley?
Well, listen, I think there's always going to be the lame duck question. Even when he got reelected, obviously there was, because of how he got reelected and by the numbers, he had a lot of momentum. But I think he's always going to face that potential of being a lame duck. I think Epstein was a little bit different of a story. I think that was a lot constituent driven. I mean, obviously, by the way, the Republicans started this whole thing with Epstein, with the conspiracy theory and everything else. So, like, we should take full blame for that. I am not a believer that there's some smoking gun about Trump in the Epstein files, because I think they would have come out under Biden or whatever. I actually think it's going to be, well, one, I hope the victims are protected, but also there's going to be a lot of conversation around, I bet you, business leaders. Obviously, Larry Summers took the fall already because of some of his behavior, but I think there's going to be other people like that. I don't think Bill Clinton gets scathed, because, again, I think that would have been out as well. And what do you do to Bill Clinton at this point, right? But I think that the Epstein vote, when you had Marjorie Taylor Greene, but you had other conservatives, Massey, like everyone that kind of votes against stuff, not Marjorie, but Massey, Congressman Massey from Kentucky. But I think constituents believe there was a conspiracy about this that we started again. And so they wanted to know. They want to know not really about Donald Trump, but they want to know about all the other people. Are there other people that are out there? So, in my opinion, I think that we waited way too long to have this vote. Obviously, you saw how quick the Senate vote was right after the House vote. And I think the president's going to sign it. I mean, why not at this point? But there's other lame duck issues that I don't think, I mean, I think he still has a lot of power in our foreign policy. We could talk about that a little bit later. I mean, there was a conflicting, it was so fun to watch yesterday in Washington when you had this big Epstein vote happening on one side of the Pennsylvania Avenue, and then on the other, you had 1,000 entourage from Saudi Arabia. And so just the competing dialogue that was happening, and I'm sure that was all purposely driven. But I'm not ready to say he's completely a lame duck. Maybe on some policy issues, maybe people are more willing to take him on, but I don't think he's quite there yet, but we'll see. I think he's got some time. A little bit
Yeah,
of time, but some
I
time.
mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword because on one hand, as we head into the midterm, Donald Trump is both the biggest asset and the biggest liability for Republicans. Like right now, the generic ballot for Republicans are upside down. They're down. A new poll came out today showing them down 14, the largest gap we've ever had in that poll. And that the majority of the country is dissatisfied with the direction that we're headed in, and Donald Trump is a drag. Like you're going to get this scenario where there are those who are running, especially in the very few swing districts that are left. They're going to be running against Donald Trump. That's going to be really tough for Republicans to create that separation. On the flip side of it, you have to keep Donald Trump at arm's length because he singularly can hijack the entire media cycle by doing whatever he wants. This is someone who has no regard for traditional norms. And so if he decides, you know what, everyone thinks I'm a lame duck, well, I'm going to go do this flex. I'm going to go send the military into a city and everyone will cover that. His commander in chief authority and that has and the expansion of executive authority that we have seen greenlit by the Supreme Court makes him impossible to ignore if he decides that he wants your attention. And I think that Republicans are going to be in the unenviable position of having to answer for every single thing that Donald Trump does from now until 2028. I think that he will be a tremendous drag on a ticket. We have already seen the conundrum for Republicans that when he is not physically on a ballot, turnout just falls off a cliff. And so the other side of that, though, is the base voters still respond to Donald Trump. The base still very much has a high approval of him. And so you need your base to win elections, but he also repels the very voters you're going to need to win in the middle ground districts. So I think Republicans have a real problem.
Well, and I think, well, a couple of things. Um, Obviously, when he's not on the ballot, that's when he's more of a liability. If you look at the track record of every single election other than 2016, 2020, and 2024, and even 2020, it wasn't a great year for the House, even though they did gain some seats. And what to me will be interesting is when we get past primary season, that how many of these incumbents are going to come out and challenge him because they don't have to worry about being primary, and how many are going to retire, which I think is, one's the micro picture, one is the macro picture. I think more and more will retire, particularly if his numbers continue to go down. And it looks like the Republicans are going to take more and more of a bath in the midterm. I think what they have going for them is that if you look at the number of congressional districts, I heard a stat the other day, I couldn't believe it. In 2000, only 25 years ago, there were 125 considered competitive or swing districts in the House. Now there are literally 13 districts that Biden won, that where there's a Republican, 3 districts that Harris won in that situation. So I don't think you're going to have these, you look back in 2010, Republicans got 63 seats. In 2018, Democrats got over 40. I don't think you're going to see that swing anymore. So, but again, it's so closely uh, divided right now that there's just takes a few votes to swing it. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, well, that's also, one of the big things that's happened this week is, the Texas redistricting has been struck down by, a federal judge. We're seeing other states that maybe thought about doing redistricting, deciding they're not going to pursue that path after all. Um,
Indiana and Kansas for 2 examples.
yeah. And so the Republican advantage that they thought they would have may not. Actually, there's a scenario where it turns out they don't have any gains in redistricting because of some of the things that other Democrat states have done. And it really, at the end of the day, it all could be for nothing. Like all the energy, money, time, oxygen spent on the redistricting wars that Republicans started this time down could be all for naught.
We didn't originally start at air quota.
That's why I said this time down.
Okay, all right. You kind of thought that you kind of threw that in there, but I mean, you're right though. If you have California and Utah with 6 seats, really that are most likely Democrat, so and then we
Virginia now
lose
after the election too.
if they've got still some significant steps to go through, but I think they could get there. But that's 1 or 2. But then if you have Texas go away on the Republican side, then you really have like Florida will probably do it for 1 or 2 seats. I mean, no, it could be it could. This is why I've said from the beginning, I think this whole gerrymandering thing's bad. I say it on both sides of the aisle, just like the shutdown.
Yeah, yeah, it's a mistake. I mean, I think it was a big tactical mistake by Republicans that they started something that they thought they would just run roughshod over, and all it ended up doing was exciting and animating the Democrats to get into the game rather than just being incompetent or complacent. And I'm a big believer tactically in campaigns. I've always said, don't do anything that excites and animates the other side's base. That the benefit that you might have in that immediate second will be washed out by the reaction that comes from the other side tactically. And I think that's a big mistake that Republicans have made this time down. They got too drunk on their own power.